Welcome back. Professor Heiman here again. Going to talk about an example of the living and working in Europe story, which is my story, which is going to help you with the extra credit assignment. I believe it's extra credit number 5. And I want to talk a little bit about my experience living in Europe and what motivates me to pick the countries I picked for living in. Okay, so I've lived, you could say, in 2 countries in Europe, one for a long time, the Netherlands, and one for a much shorter period of time, Finland. Okay, now one of the reasons I picked both those countries is they're different countries than the UK, which is a great place to get along if English is your only language, but it's not, the UK is great, but to me it's not that different from the US. In fact, aside from Canada, I think it's the most similar country out there to the US. You could even argue it's more similar than the US, than Canada is to the US because of the politics largely. So my point is I wanted an adventure, but I didn't want to go somewhere it's just all English all the time. So the first time out, I went to the Netherlands. I was an MBA student that first time, and then the second time I did 4 years as a professor down in the south of the Netherlands. And this is in my bio, so I'm not going to go over this too much more deeply, but I'm going to talk a little bit about what it's like to live there, and also maybe a couple seconds on Finland too, which I have some experience with. So why the Netherlands? Okay, exciting country, great social policy for me. It's a good fit to my temperament, their approach to social policy in the Netherlands. Good people. The Dutch are very capitalistic. They're actually very driven by money, and will admit that. They enjoy a good beer. They have a very friendly culture, but the key with Dutch folks is you need to get to know them, and then you can work with them and be friends with them quite easily. The best strategy for getting a job in the Netherlands is to get the job first before you move there. Don't move there and then look for a job. You won't find a job, you won't get a work permit, you won't get a residence permit. Find the job first and then move to the country. That's true of all the EU countries. You'll do much better that way. Other things about the Netherlands that I really like is advanced telecommunications infrastructure, and it's a pretty car-oriented culture, even though they have great trains. The freeways are as good as the freeways here in the Bay Area. For example, Highway 280 when it's not a rush hour. They're really high quality freeways that are well maintained and well lit, and you can drive on them in a safe manner. The country roads, perhaps a little bit less so, but those are kind of more fun than anything else to drive on. The Netherlands is very flat. I like to bicycle. Again, some compatibility with my personal approach to things. One of my members of my family spoke German, and Dutch is not so far off from German, so that person could then learn Dutch very quickly. I learned Dutch a lot more slowly, but it's a beautiful language once you get to know it. And I do now speak Dutch reasonably well, having sort of focused on that as something to add value to my employment for my employer when I was in the Netherlands. What else could I say about the Netherlands before shifting to Finland is that the Dutch people understand joy and they understand art, and it comes through. They have more museums in the Netherlands than any place I've ever been, particularly Amsterdam. My wife and I are real museum buffs, and so we like going to different museums all the time. We will travel long distances to go to a great museum. The Dutch also big believers in modern art, as well as sort of more classical art. I'm turned on by stuff from Van Gogh onwards. Actually, the pronunciation is Van Gogh because he was Dutch, although he spent most of his time in France. And they have a great Van Gogh museum in Amsterdam. There's also the Rijksmuseum, and there's probably 100 other museums just in Amsterdam. But the Netherlands has more than that to offer in terms of arts and culture. They're very big into music. One of the things that made me hesitate was the weather is pretty different than the San Francisco Bay Area, and that was never an issue for me, but some of the people I was living with, my family, had trouble with 200 days of rain a year. So if that's a problem for you, think about what's the weather like in that country. Is it too hot, too rainy, too something else? Let's switch to Finland. Now that's a different country than the Netherlands. They got about 5 million people in population in Finland, but the country is the size of California, and over half of it is inside the Arctic Circle. And that's quite a story, because right there you know it's going to be cold, it's going to be frozen, the winters are going to be harsh, it's a real adventure just to be up there, even in the summer, although it's warm in the summer. I will say that, and it's delightfully warm in the summer, and it's a good place to be in the summer. The Finnish people are very driven. They are very entrepreneurship focused, which is a rather new thing that's happened in the last 10 to 12 years. They also love to be outside. They like to ride their bikes. It's also a fairly flat country in Finland, although they have definitely got more hills than the Netherlands. But biking is an utterly viable option, especially in the cities. I've spent time in Helsinki, again, very art-oriented city. They have good public transport in Helsinki, just like in Amsterdam. And it's a suitable place to live and work. Also, in my profession, the business school profession, the pay is pretty good. They have a saying that they pay the Finnish biz school professors like rock stars, or Finnish professors get paid like rock stars, because the government puts a healthy and large emphasis on the value of education. It's also true in the Netherlands, but Finland is the one that got the rating for having the best universities in the world. So why not have colleagues there that I can work with and I can live with, and we can move forward together in a pleasant environment. The Finnish people love saunas. I like saunas. My wife likes saunas. They like to jump in a frozen lake after the sauna. Not so sure about that for me. I'm going to try it sometime soon, but haven't tried that particular thing in Finland yet. I would say Finland is a very interesting country to live in because it's very international with only 5 million people in the country. They spend a lot of their resources bringing in outsiders to enrich their country, which is a really great and valuable approach to things. Finland is a fairly diverse country. The Laplanders and then the Finns in the south, they mix well, and it seems like there's not a lot of tension there. And it's a very enjoyable place to live and work. Partly because the Finns are great people. And again, if it's coming through that I want to live and work in a country in Europe where the people are friendly and open and they have good social policy, then that's indeed one of the major deciding factors. If you want to have great weather, I think Finland and the Netherlands are not a great choice. And I would not fault anybody who says I could never live in Spain because it's too hot, for example, okay? So the weather can be a major deciding factor, but think along the lines of what are the social, political, and economic factors that might drive you to choose a particular country. And hopefully this prompt has been somewhat usable for you or useful for you when it comes to helping you answer that particular extra credit question. Extra credit number 5, living and working in Europe. And that's it for now. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for listening.